Today DICE gave us more information on Battlefield 5, specifically around the individual classes and the combat roles available to them at launch. We also got some information on the weapon categories going to be available for the individual classes, but generally this hasn't changed too much beyond what we already had in the public beta. Starting off with everybody's favorite class, at least for the public beta, Assault class, most of the things here are unchanged. You still have access to the assault rifles and semi-automatic rifles. You're still going to be looking at the kind of gadgets like rifle grenade launchers, sticky dynamite, or rocket launcher. What we do now know, however, is that you're going to have access, as all classes are, to 2 different combat roles when the game launches, with more combat roles set to be added as the game progresses in development and more content is added later on in the life service cycle. Now, Light Infantry is the first of the 2 combat roles available, and it is more or less what we had for the Assault class in the public beta. You get extra ammo off defeated enemies and fallen comrades, and you regenerate a little bit more health than other classes do or assaults using other combat roles. In the beta, this was 40 instead of the default 30. There's no reason at this point to think that this has in any way been changed. The Tank Buster is the second of the 2 combat roles available to the Assault class, and it comes with bonuses all around taking down tanks. So vehicles that you damage become spotted, and vehicles that you destroy yield additional requisition points for your squad. These are essentially the squad reinforcement points that your squad leader can use to call in mostly V1 rocket strikes. He could use them to the benefit of your team as well, but generally uses them just to get a few kills. So how many bonus points actually you get, nobody knows, but you get some form of bonus for taking down vehicles when having equipped that combat role. Moving on then to the medic, and here I've got a little bit of a gripe, because the weapons available to the medic, as in the beta in my opinion, are contrary to, well, good game design really, and good class design. The medic needs to be a flexible class that can help and aid its teammates in any situation really, not just close quarters, because yes, a revive always involves being right on top of the individual you want to revive, and giving people health usually only happens within 20 meters of that target. But that doesn't mean that person has died to somebody in close quarters, and generally you want to kill whoever's downed your teammate before you revive them, especially if they're close or medium range, sometimes even when they're long range. And this is why generally the medic has always been given some of the most flexible weapons in the Battlefield series. In Battlefield 4 they had the assault rifles, in Battlefield 1 they had these self-loading rifles, the self-loading rifles really being the only category of weaponry, with a few exceptions of more long-range specialized LMGs that were capable of dealing with everything from almost close quarters, medium range, all the way out to long range, just not quite extreme long range. And that works very well. That's not going to work, however, so far in Battlefield 5, because the only primary weapon category available to the medic here is the submachine gun, or SMG, essentially what the assaults had in Battlefield 1. And I think this is going to lead to a disaster. Let me know down below in the comments if you disagree. The gadgets are mostly unchanged here for the medic. What is interesting, however, as with all of these classes, are the now announced combat roles. So Field Medic will allow you to gain additional requisition points. These are, as said previously, these squad reinforcement points for supplying med kits to teammates. And you'll sprint faster when calling out to a down friend. So if you spot that down friend, as in Battlefield 1, to indicate that you're coming to revive them, you'll actually be able to move faster to them than if you were just normally sprinting about the place, doing whatever you otherwise do. Now, the second is the Combat Medic. He gets a bonus for melee combat in form of automatically taking down enemies which you melee. If this is what it sounds like, a one-shot melee kill, this is going to be a disaster and going to introduce a whole new level of panic knives that we saw in Battlefield 1. So either it's not the way, or it's quickly going to get nerfed, because people are going to start complaining pretty fast about this. An emergency retreat. This allows you to faster sprint when at critical health. And I know for my part that that's going to be definitely what I'm going to be using as medic, because there's plenty of situations where all your teammates die and you just have to run the fuck away. And that's exactly when you get shot in the back. And that's exactly when you need that extra sprinting speed. Moving on though from the medic to the support class. The class that DICE is really trying to give a little bit of love, because nobody tends to actually use it. That, of course, being a little bit exaggerated, but you get my point. Now, the weapons here are still the same. Light machine guns, medium machine guns. No word, however, on whether or not they've still got access to these shotguns. None of the classes have shotguns listed as primary weapon category. Now, this just may be a mistake, or there isn't that many shotguns in the game, so it's not worth kind of pointing out that the assault or the medic or the support class is actually getting these shotguns. But for now, I'm just going to assume that support still gets the shotguns, because there's been no indication otherwise, or there's no shotguns in the game. Unlikely. The gadgets are generally still all the same. What is, of course, now available in terms of information are the combat roles. Engineer is the first of them, the one you're going to start off with, and here you can repair vehicles and build fortifications significantly faster, as well as fire static weapons and mounted vehicle weapons for a longer duration before they actually overheat. Somewhat useful, not massively influential though. Now, Machine Gunner, my preferred choice of the 2 combat roles available, is increased suppression ability and automatically spot enemies when you fully suppress them. This actually, for those who use more larger magazine LMGs, or when you use larger magazine LMGs, may actually prove to be influential and useful to that individual, and of course his team. Because suppressing enemies doesn't just help you, it helps your team as well. And if they're spotted, well, they're lit up like a Christmas tree and everybody can start shooting at them. Last, then we have everybody's favorite class to be killed by. Not at all. The Recon class. And they've got the same weapons that they had available in the beta in form of the bolt-action rifles and these self-loading rifles, which I always thought was a very interesting addition and actually a great idea for the scout class, because it's going to give the scouts really a medium range role, or even depending on which self-loading rifle they actually add to the game, a close quarter option to push onto the objective with their team, use their spotting tools, whether it's flares or whatever other gadgets they're going to be given, to the really best advantage of their team without having to camp out 50, 100 meters away from an objective, which is my preferred playstyle, kind of getting on an objective, helping my team actively instead of long range taking out people, just the way I prefer to play any class, including scout. So in that term, things are great. The gadgets are the ones that you would expect: spotting scope, bouncing Betty bomb, etc. The specializations are amongst the more interesting one. Now, the base one, the one you're going to start with, sniper, is okay. Steady your scope for a longer duration while holding your breath, and steady duration is partially replenished with each headshot kill. So if you go on a kill streak, you can basically have your scope constantly steadied while you're aiming down sight, if you take people out kind of one after another. Somewhat nice, but I've never really struggled with steadying my scope in Battlefield, and I doubt that's going to be the case in Battlefield 5. Pathfinder, on the other hand, is in my opinion going to be the most influential class specialization combat role available in Battlefield 5 at launch, assuming that they nerf the medic one, because that's just going to be annoying. Pathfinder offers you advanced scouting, which means you can spawn on friendly squad leaders and spawn beacons from outside your own squad. And this is going to be hugely influential for game modes like Operations, Frontlines, or Rush, although Rush isn't announced yet. Probably will get added in some point later down the line, because it'll allow you, even when your squad gets wiped, to keep the pressure on the enemy on the front line. And this is going to make a big difference, in my opinion, to whether or not a team can actually get that clutch win in a case of an Operations. If their team is actively using this kind of specializations, they're basically never going to not be able to spawn on the front lines, and that's going to make a huge difference. The second ability for Pathfinder is Vanguard. Gain additional requisition points when someone spawns on your spawn beacon or gadget. How influential this is, nobody knows, because nobody knows how many those bonus points actually are, and nobody actually wants to see more V1 rockets raining down, so meh. The Pathfinder's ability or uniqueness really comes from its advanced scouting option that's spawning on friendly spawn beacons and friendly squad leaders. That being said, though, that pretty much wraps it up for all combat roles, weapon categories, and some information on gadgets available on all the 4 primary classes once Battlefield 5 launches. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we've talked about in today's video, as well as, of course, your usual video suggestions, so leave those down below in the comments or hit me up with them on Twitter. If you found the video entertaining or helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.